Hello, this is Lisa, CEO of Site for Wight, welcoming you to this week's Talking News on Saturday the 12th of November. This week we've sent out a mini newsletter with some vital information for people. First of all, we'd like to invite you for mince pies and mulled wine here at Millbrook House on Wednesday the 7th of December. Also, we'd like to remind everybody, if you would like to order large print diaries or calendars, please do let Susan know by the 18th of November by calling 522205. Also, we have been invited to take part in the skating day on November the 19th in Newport. We have been given exclusive use of the rink, which is for skating this year as opposed to ice skating last year, from 10 till 11 in the morning on the 19th of November. So again, please call the office if you'd like to join in.
Cards.
Also, a reminder, if you would like to join in the Christmas raffle, please do send the ticket stubs in as soon as possible. Finally, the mini newsletter reminds people that today is the closing date for the annual short story writing competition. So please do get your entries in. Thank you. Everybody, stay safe. Lisa.
This is Chris reading an article from Isle of Wight Radio. Wildlife TV presenter Megan McCubbin is named Hampshire and Isle of Wight Wildlife Trust President. The 27-year-old Springwatch star was confirmed as the Trust's president at the charity's recent annual general meeting on November the 5th. McCubbin, who grew up in Hampshire, takes over from predecessor John Coleman, who is retiring from the role after 6 years of service. Naturalist and Springwatch co-presenter Chris Packham was also appointed as a vice president for the Trust. McCubbin said, "I am over the moon to be the next president for the Hampshire and Isle of Wight Wildlife Trust. I have so much admiration for the fundamental work that the charity carries out, from the reintroduction of key species to their community conservation projects. I cannot wait to get stuck into my role, helping to protect the environment across the two counties." As well as presenting on the BBC's Spring Watch and Autumn Watch programmes, McCubbin has recently co-authored her first book, Back to Nature: How to Love Life and Save It. The Trust is currently working towards its goals of inspiring at least 1 in 4 people to take action for nature and to push for at least 30% of land and sea to be protected and restored for nature by 2030. Debbie Tan, Chief Executive of Hampshire and Isle of Wight Wildlife Trust, said, "We are thrilled to welcome Megan on board as our new president. We're currently facing immense pressures from the climate and nature crises, and Megan's significant conservation and science communications experience will be crucial in helping us to tip the balance in favour of nature's recovery. I am delighted to join the superb Hampshire and Isle of Wight Wildlife Trust as a Vice President. In our current climate and ecological emergency, organisations such as the Wildlife Trusts are essential, and I am delighted to be part of it."
This is Brian reading an item from Isle of Wight Radio. Apley Tower. Restoration of Grade 2 listed building approved. A Ride landmark has been granted a new lease of life. Planning permission was granted last week by the Isle of Wight Council for restoration of the Grade 2 listed Apley Tower on Ryde seafront. The tower, halfway along the beach between Apley and Putpool, will become an art gallery with education and retail use. The tower was last used as a crystal and fossil shop in 2017, but was opened to the public as a one-off in 2018 as part of Apley Day. Renovations to the tower include external and internal alterations, illumination, interpretation boards and roof terrace with balustrade. Work also involves major repairs to the stonework, replacement windows and doors, and internal decoration. Ryde Mayor and local ward councillor Michael Lilly said the proposals were fully supported by the community and himself as a feasible and sustainable way forward to preserve the important and iconic historical building. In their decision, Isle of Wight Council officers said the balustrade is likely to have the most significant impact on the external appearance of the building, but it is required to protect users and is justified to access the roof and gain impressive views across the beach. To help fund future repairs and tower maintenance, 4 new beach huts in the same style and colour will be added to the existing rows further down the beach. Conditions of the planning permission mean the new huts cannot be used as overnight accommodation or as a sole or main place of residence. Island charity Natural Enterprise, which is behind the plans, estimated in 2019 the cost of renovating the tower would be over £220,000, but plans were halted for the last few years due to the COVID pandemic. Last November, concerns were shared by the charity that repair costs would hinder the scheme if they spiralled any further. It was thought it would cost around £330,000 to get the tower in a good enough state to open it to the public.
This is Chris reading an article from the Island Echo. Local Photographic Society holds annual exhibition at Ryde Library this month. On display will be photos from the Society's members. Established in 1945, although there is some evidence to indicate that the Society had its origins in the late 19th century, the group is the oldest photographic club on the island. There are experienced members who are willing to offer their help. Regular competitions are held. Those are for prints and projected digital images. The Society meet face-to-face at Arreton Community Hall or via Zoom every Wednesday from September to May. In addition, there will be a Saturday morning hub session from 10 till 12 noon at Key Arts Centre in Newport on the last Saturday of the month. The hub is an informal get-together to explore editing techniques and ask for help, etc. For further information, visit www.iowphotosoc.org.uk.
This is Brian reading an item from Isle of Wight Radio. 6 months of works on Ventnor's spyglass wall starts this month. Island Roads is strengthening the wall on the seafront behind the Spyglass Inn. It means from November the 14th, the esplanade will be closed between the Spyglass and La Falaise car park, which will remain accessible via Bath Road. Pedestrian access will be maintained at all times. The wall supports the esplanade as it rises up towards La Falaise car park. As part of the project, the existing stone parapet wall will also be rebuilt to match that opposite. The work location lies within a conservation area, and the project has been approved by the Isle of Wight Council's conservation team. The project has been programmed to take place after the summer season at the request of the Spyglass Inn, which will remain open throughout the project. Senior Project Manager Jason Bolter said, "The project will strengthen and repair around 90 metres of this retaining wall that has supported the esplanade since at least the 1860s. It is a scheme that will combine very modern engineering techniques, including the installation of nearly 80 anchors to strengthen the wall, with traditional stonework, as it is important to preserve the historic character of the area as well as to secure the integrity of the esplanade at this location. We would like to thank the Spyglass Inn for their assistance and support so far. Work will start on November the 14th and is scheduled to last up to 6 months.
This is Chris reading an article from the Island Echo. Island's Guildhall heritage site deemed at risk in 2022 risk register. Historic England has published its Heritage Risk Register for 2022, and one Isle of Wight landmark is on the list. Published annually, this year's iteration has seen the Guildhall on High Street, Newport, a Grade 2 listed building, added to the list after concerns were voiced about its roof and stonework. The Guildhall in Newport was built in 1814 to 1816 to a design by the architect John Nash to house the borough's civic and judicial functions and a market. A clock tower was added in 1887 to 88 to mark Queen Victoria's Golden Jubilee. Since 1996, the building has been in use as the Museum of Island History, with associated offices and storage. It was added to the Heritage at Risk Register in 2022 due to the poor condition of the roofs, render, stonework and drains. The Guildhall is owned by the Isle of Wight Council, which is working with partners and through the High Street Heritage Action Zone to develop plans for its refurbishment and options for its future use. Isle of Wight Council undertook £20,000 of emergency roof repairs last year and are monitoring the condition of building closely. Historic England awarded close to £1 million in repair grants to 18 historic places and sites, including conservation areas, in the southeast on the Heritage at Risk Register over the past year. In addition, £0.31 million was spent on 2 places in the southeast, with support from the Culture Recovery Fund. 11 sites in the southeast have been added to the register because of concerns about their condition. They are at risk of being lost forever as a result of neglect, decay, or inappropriate development. Emily G., Regional Director of Historic England, said, "It is central to Historic England's mission that we pass on to future generations the rich legacy of historic buildings and places that we have inherited from previous generations. Our Heritage is at Risk programme is a key contributor to this ambition. With the help of local communities and partners, imaginative thinking and business planning, we can continue to regenerate historic places across the southeast."
Island adult social care services under threat after going £2.6 million over budget. ROM Isle of Wight Radio, read by Joyce. Some island services may have to close if the Isle of Wight Council does not receive promised government money for adult social care. That was the dire warning from the authority. As it was revealed, the council is set to go over its adult social care budget by £647,000. Rising bills, the struggle to recruit care staff and pressures in providing care packages are among the factors causing the crisis. The authority is also having to resort to more expensive agency staff to cover vacancies in the sector. Speaking at the Council's Corporate Scrutiny Committee earlier this week, Councillor Carl Love, the Council's Cabinet Member for Adult Social Care, also pointed out that there were a number of clients who cost the Council over £1 million a year, and that was something they were looking to address. Councillor Love said the Council was in a difficult position, but they were working hard to bridge the gap. Our officers have become experts in stretching boundaries, but we have reached the point where we cannot stretch any more, he said. We don't have the ability to generate the money on the island unless we significantly close things down, such as loss-making leisure centres, as has happened in other areas. I am not saying we are doing it, but it is something we are having to think about, because we still have a statutory responsibility to keep adult social care services going. Government money, Councillor Love said, would help the Council fund the service more and pay carers a better wage, enabling a better chance at recruitment. The island was not isolated with its adult social care issues, as the same problems are being experienced across the UK. He said there was a lot of competition in the sector, and it was essential the island worked as an integrated system, so bodies were not competing against each other.
Good morning, this is Pauline.
And this is Morris.
Before we start the second part of the Talking News, here is this week's Society News, 11th of November. Swimming is on every Monday at Medina Leisure Centre, Newport, between 1:15 and 2:15. We have exclusive hire of the whole pool and the cost is only £5. Please call the office to book a space. Our Tuesday yoga sessions at Millbrook House, the cost is £3 and runs between 2 p.m. and 3 p.m. Refreshments served afterwards. Coffee and chat is on Wednesday at Millbrook House. The cost is £1 for coffee and cake, and everyone is welcome to come along.
Next week on Saturday the 19th, we have exclusive use of the roller skating rink at Skates Park in Newport, and this is part of the Newport Day of Christmas. The rink is on the quay and we have 35 places for members, volunteers and friends. The session is between 10 a.m. and 11 a.m, but you must be there for 9:30 for skates. If you are interested, please call the office. A date for your diary is December the 5th at the Riverside Centre, our annual story writing competition awards evening starting at 7 p.m. The evening is full of entertainment, raffle, and it is free, so please come along and support this event. Don't forget our Christmas raffle to be drawn on the 7th of December at Millbrook House. If you have tickets, please remember to return them, or if you require more, we can easily send some out in the post. On the 7th of December, we would like to invite you all into Millbrook House for a festive morning with festive food and drink where the grand raffle will be drawn. You have 1 week left to place your order for this year's calendars and diaries for 2023. Please remember the last day of receiving orders is Friday the 18th of November to ensure orders are delivered in time for Christmas. Please call the office if you would like more information on the products we have to offering ranging from A6 pocket diary to large A3 calendars. If you are interested in any of the activities and events, please do not hesitate to contact the office on 522205. There is 4 categories this year. For more details, look at our website or call the office.
Now we have the Talking News articles. The Breeze has closed. The Breeze restaurant and bar at Island Harbour has closed for the foreseeable future, but its owners insist the message is temporary. In a letter, managers said the decision had been taken with great sadness. The statement read, "We are currently in the process of evaluating the long-term viability, but the restaurant will need to remain closed for the foreseeable future. It has become increasingly difficult to find experienced and qualified staff, and this has caused an enormous difficulty over the last summer season. In addition to this, the recent rising economic costs have also contributed to our decision. In September, the venue managed to stay open when Island Harbour fell into administration. That part of the site is owned by a separate company, which allowed it to weather the storm. In August, the Breeze was hit by a 1-star hygiene rating after an inspection by the Isle of Wight Council."
I have a headline here that reads, "Terry defies energy cost hike and bus firm snub," which is written by Alan Marriott. The cost of staging this year's Christmas lights in Long Lane, Newport will be phenomenal, but Terry Ramplin is still going ahead with his charity fundraiser. However, the people who travel around on Southern Vectis Christmas light specials won't be treated to Terry's amazing display. The bus company has left the Long Lane lights off its route for this year as the 72-year-old tries to raise funds for the Prostate Cancer Isle of Wight support group through his twinkling light show. Terry told the county press the first he heard that he wasn't on the route was when he phoned up Southern Vectis to ask them for support as electricity prices have rocketed this year. Southern Vectis confirmed 68 Long Lane was not on its route this year. "I was phoning Isle of Wight businesses asking for support and rang them, and that's when they told me they weren't stopping at Long Lane. It's a blow." Terry has been putting on the amazing show for 23 years now and has raised over £30,000 for many great causes over the years. He has gone back to prostate cancer this year after his fundraising in 2021 allowed the group to test 250 Newport men. 30 of those men required further investigation, so that was important work, said Terry. Over the years, he has supported many Isle of Wight charities, from Mountbatten to Ability Dogs for Young People, Home Start to Medina House School. Hampshire and Isle of Wight Air Ambulance was one that was close to my heart, as without them, my children would have not had a mother. Terry said the energy crisis made him think twice about doing it this year, as many of his lights were old and energy inefficient, but he had decided to go ahead. The lights will be switched on December the 3rd at 6 p.m. in the usual way, with sausage rolls and mince pies on offer to those who turn up. The cost will be phenomenal, but it is worth it to support such a great cause, he said.
Mystery of Kingston Park development. A one-off opportunity which could create up to 1,000 jobs in East Cowes in the creative industry has been proposed to the Isle of Wight Council. The council would need to sell the site to 3 unnamed but well-known sector-leading figures with decades of experience if the development of the Kingston Marine Park, KMP, on the banks of the River Medina is to go ahead. The authority has received an offer for the site on Saunders Way and were due to decide whether or not to sell the land at its cabinet meeting last night, potentially behind closed doors. KMP has been vacant for more than 10 years and until 2018 was owned by the government under its Homes and Community Agency. Planning permission was granted in 2012 for the 15,000 square metre marine business park, with the hope of relocating boat building from Ventnor Quays. A smaller application for the marine park was approved in January 2018 but did not go ahead. The council bought the site on the same year with the intention of delivering economic growth and prosperity. However, the necessary river access has been the main issue with any development. In recent years, the council has marketed the 16-acre site and received interest and offers from businesses wanting to utilise the land for non-marine uses. In a report going to the council's cabinet, the developers, 2 of 3 parties supposedly live locally, are said to be highly driven to deliver the project and in a hurry to do so.
The Isle of Wight NHS Trust says it is not expecting to be affected by looming strike action by nurses, unlike many neighbouring organisations. In many areas around the UK, members of the Royal College of Nurses, the RCN, have opted to walk out, unhappy with pay and conditions. Industrial action, expected before the end of the year, will be the first of its kind in 160 years. Despite a countrywide ballot of 300,000 RCN members, not everywhere gained enough support for a strike. Close to the island, votes at the South East Coast Ambulance Service, the Southern Health NHS Foundation Trust, the Portsmouth Hospitals NHS Trust and the University Hospital Southampton NHS Trust and the Solent NHS Trust all met the threshold, and health bosses are braced for action. It is expected the NHS will continue to treat emergency patients, but reports suggest hospitals could see staffing levels similar to Christmas on strike days. On the island, support did not meet the threshold for strike action, which is expected to mean that St Mary's Hospital in Newport will not see similar levels of disruption. Island MP Bob Seeley praised island nurses for not striking.
An Isle of Wight teenager will face trial in April after more terrorism charges were brought against him in court last Friday. The 15-year-old from Cowes pleaded not guilty on all counts when he appeared before Winchester Crown Court via a remote link. As previously reported, he was initially charged with the preparation of terrorist acts under Section 5 of the Terrorism Act of 2006. Last week, he was further charged with 3 counts of dissemination of terrorist publications under Section 2 of the Terrorism Act 2006, and having an article with a blade or point in a public place, contrary to Section 139 of the Criminal Justice Act 1988. The boy, who cannot be named or identified for legal reasons, was arrested on Monday, July the 11th, by officers from Counter-Terrorism Policing South East, with assistance from Hampshire Constabulary. At a previous hearing, he was accused of researching the Isle of Wight Festival as a potential target for terrorism and developing an interest in extreme Islamism. It was also claimed that the Cowes teenager supported IS ideology, shared videos and wrote a note entitled "To My Family." At the time of his arrest, officers had received a tip-off from the FBI that he was allegedly planning to attack a non-believer who he thought had insulted him. He was charged on Sunday, July the 17th, and made an appearance at the Old Bailey in London in August. A hearing will take place on March the 7th, 2023, and a trial is listed for April 18th, 2023.
Final plans for 2 new voting constituencies, the Isle of Wight East and the Isle of Wight West, have been unveiled at the start of a final consultation before a decision is made. The island will almost certainly have 2 MPs at the next general election. The Boundary Commission is delivering plans for a country-wide shake-up designed to make the areas represented by a single MP more equal, with no fewer than 69,724 electors and no more than 77,062. As England's largest constituency, the Isle of Wight gets an exception, and instead there will be 2 small areas themselves roughly balanced. A split down the middle is almost guaranteed, with consultation ongoing about where the border will lie. Under plans revealed this week, East Cowes and Fairley and Whippingham will be part of Isle of Wight West, so East Cowes and Cowes are not divided. Newport will also fall into that constituency. In the Isle of Wight East, you would find Newchurch, Haven Street and Ashy, as well as Ventnor and St Lawrence, Wroxall, Lowtherville and Bonchurch. A north-south divide proposed by Labour was not popular, said the Boundary Commission, while MP Bob Seeley called for Ventnor and St Lawrence to remain part of the West. This final consultation closes on December the 5th, after which the Boundary Commission will form its final recommendations. A plan will be submitted to Parliament by July the 1st, 2023. Across the country there will be 650 constituencies. Speaking on the national plans, Tim Bowden, Secretary to the Boundary Commission for England, said, "Today's publication is the culmination of months of analysis, and we have revised nearly half of our initial proposals based on what people have told us. We now believe we are close to the best map of constituencies that can be achieved under the rules we are working to."
Southern Water's hosepipe ban has been lifted after what the utility firm called an excellent response from customers, helping save 11 million litres of water. A temporary use ban was introduced on the Isle of Wight and in Hampshire at the start of August. A drought risk remains because rivers and reservoir levels remain lower than normal despite the recent torrential rain. However, customers in the two counties will no longer have to restrict water use outside their homes. The measures were brought in during the summer drought to protect the rivers Test and Itchen. Katie Taylor, Southern Water's Chief Customer Officer, said, "Thank you to everyone who has supported this hosepipe ban over the past 3 months. We know it has been inconvenient, but your help has allowed us to protect our environment during almost unprecedented drought conditions. We continue to encourage everyone to play their part in using water wisely through the coming months."
Work to fix a cracked pipe at a popular Isle of Wight swimming centre is now complete. Medina Leisure Centre's small pool has reopened to the public following a technical issue with the pool pumps. "Thank you for your patience while we worked to fix the cracked pipe in the small swimming pool at Medina," said a spokesperson for the centre. On Thursday, the small pool was losing water and had to close. Swimming lessons went ahead in the main pool instead. Following the fix, the centre's first casual swim session was available on Saturday.
A special cafe in Ventnor was visited by the Bishop of Portsmouth last Thursday. The Right Reverend Jonathan Frost said he had heard about the Better Days Cafe and wanted to see it firsthand. He'd heard the cafe was an inclusion hub for all, offering a warm welcome, literally a warm place to spend some time if you can't afford the heating at home. It offers smiles, signposted people in the direction of help available in the community, and gave work experience to anyone who has never worked. It is run by volunteers and receives no funding except what people donate. People who can afford to eat there pay their way, and those who can't donate a bit. The soup kitchen doesn't require a voucher or a referral. People can just ask for the house special and they'll get a free sandwich or soup. People without their own Wi-Fi can use the cafes. Kirsty Chapman runs the cafe. She was thrilled to have such a high-profile visitor. She said he was charming, kind and impressed, shocked that we have zero funding. He spoke to some of our volunteers whose lives have been changed by the cafe. He spoke to customers who rely on the cafe. "I'm not religious but appreciate his importance in the church. He even offered to be our patron should we decide to become a charity. Thank you to the Reverend Hugh Wright and his colleagues from St Catherine's Church in Ventnor."
A government minister has been asked to come to the island to support a bid for better sustainable transport. MP Bob Seeley has written to Levelling Up Minister Dehenna Davison, inviting her and asking her department to support the Isle of Wight Council's bid for an island green link through round 2 of the government's Levelling Up Fund. The proposed project consists of 3 elements: the creation of a Ride to Yarmouth public transport corridor, a multi-use cycle route between Newport and Freshwater, which is the West Wight Greenway, and the Newport Hub and Spokes scheme, which will extend existing cycle routes and establish a mobility hub connecting Green Link projects with existing public transport. Mr Seeley said, "I have invited Miss Davison to the island so she can see how the Levelling Up Fund is already helping to deliver regeneration and economic growth."
Island football lost another great character last Friday, Steve Case, the man affectionately known as Caser and Mr Pan. Since the shock news of his death, tributes have poured in for the Gunville man, who led Pan Community, formerly Pan Sports, to a historic treble last season. The Hampshire Saturday Vars, the Isle of Wight Junior A Cup and the Island League Division 2 title. Steve has been in football management on the island for more than 3 decades, most of which were spent at Pan, and a further 15 as a player, chiefly for Carisbrooke United, making countless friends and earning huge respect in the island football community. Whichever ground he took his side to, one could always hear Steve's immortal words, "You're in, Nipper." John Sivier, Steve's number 2 at Pan the past 6 years and a great friend for many years, said we were like an old married couple and would talk about the game 4 or 5 times a week. He had a unique way of doing things. He knew what he wanted and how to get it across. Steve deserved last year. The lads all loved and respected him. They were all Pan boys and gave 110% for him every game. They will want to make sure his memory lives on. It won't be the same at Pan without him. Steve, a cousin of Liverpool legend Jimmy Case, was a one-off who brought his enthusiasm to every match, said Jeff Ruck, chairman of the Isle of Wight Divisional FA. Binstead boss James Connor added, "Lovely and loyal bloke, huge respect for what he's done at Pan, an island football legend." Echoing those sentiments, Shanklin boss Paul Hayward said, "Steve was a really lovable character. A few years back when we played Pan, I got the lads in for a team talk before the game, and Steve was in there with his linesman flag. He said, 'Don't worry about me, Nipper,' but I asked him politely to leave. No matter. No other manager like him."
Remembrance looms this week, and for one man it is a poignant time for remembering his late father. Henry Hector, 82, treasures photos of his father, also Henry, but is also lucky enough to have his war diaries which outline the D-Day landings. Henry is currently in respite care at St Vincent's residential home with his wife Irene. They both have Parkinson's, but Henry takes comfort in remembering his father and, like millions across the country, will be paying a tribute on November the 11th and Remembrance Sunday. His father was in the Royal Navy during the Second World War as a petty officer on special operations and part of the 35th S4R flotilla, and chronicled his time in handwritten notes. Henry was born in 1940, so was a young child when his father was away in the war. Henry said he was a Cockney and an absolute gentleman and died in 1967. It was a great honour when in 2019 I was invited to Portsmouth to walk in the footsteps of the Allied commanders. You can go to thecountypress.co.uk for details of Island Remembrance events.
A man has been banned from entering the centre of Newport for 3 years as part of a criminal behaviour order, CBO, imposed by the courts. Luke Fauvel, aged 38, from Station Avenue in Sandown, was handed the CBO by magistrates on the Isle of Wight on November the 8th. The ban follows a prolonged period of abusive and threatening behaviour. Police have worked with local businesses, shop owners and pubs to understand the extent of the issues, which include reports of criminal damage, theft, public order offences and drunken antisocial and nuisance behaviour. Magistrates were provided with witness statements outlining the behaviour and considered Fauvel's previous convictions, which date back to 2006. His most recent conviction was on September the 2nd, after he pleaded guilty to shoplifting a vacuum cleaner from Sainsbury's in Newport. Inspector Matt Gooding said Luke Fauvel's extensive history of poor behaviour has now caught up with him, and he has been served with a lengthy order that will limit his ability to continue behaving in this manner. These incidences have caused misery to the local community for far too long. We continue to encourage anyone who is affected by antisocial behaviour to contact police by calling 101.
Last Friday saw the official opening of the new Mad Aid Community Centre in East Cowes. It was attended by around 70 people, including the Isle of Wight MP Bob Seeley, Isle of Wight Councillor and East Cowes Town Councillor Kari Love, East Cowes Town Councillor Cameron Palin, Cowes Town Councillor Michael Paler and the East Cowes Mayor Tracy Reardon, who cut the ribbon. The East Cowes-based charity, which helps Moldovans and Ukrainians in need, was given permission to use the old post office and former library in 11 York Avenue as a sorting office for donations when the Ukrainian conflict started in February. Since then, the charity has worked with East Cowes Town Council and the Isle of Wight Council to develop 11 York Avenue into a useful community facility. The new community room is now available to hire for birthday parties, club meetings, conferences, community events, fitness classes, coffee mornings and much more. And if you'd like to book, you need to call 01983 200 648.
Rescue team finds perfect training base. New recruits who will spend their free time searching for missing people have been trained up at an Isle of Wight base. New starters with Isle of Wight Search and Rescue, that's Wight SAR, were welcomed to education activity provider PGL's base, Little Canada, at Wootton. After undertaking a period of training, the new volunteers spent their final weekend at the activity centre, including taking part in a night search to sign off their formal assessments. For Dean Terrett, chairman and founder of Wight SAR, the support of Little Canada is invaluable, as it allows the group to focus funds on their valuable search and rescue resources. For years we were needing volunteers to travel to the mainland to complete their training and self-fund their accommodation and travel, which we appreciate is difficult for some people to do. By having a training venue on the island, we're able to reduce costs as well as give practical experience in local terrain. Little Canada's vast space means it provides the group with a wide open area for skills, training as well as wooded area to provide evacuation training.
After 3 years in the pipeline, plans for a site on Ventnor Esplanade have finally been approved, despite residents dubbing this development a monstrosity. Demolition of La Vanesse started last November, and only now, a year later, has the Isle of Wight Council given permission for its replacement to be built. Instead, a 5-storey building with 5 flats will fill the gap on the esplanade. 4 of the flats will have 2 bedrooms, but the top 2 floors will form a 3-bedroomed penthouse. Plans for the site were revised twice since they were first submitted to the Isle of Wight Council in 2019, and over time have included changes to the parking, appearance and a reduction in the width and depth of the top floor. Nearly 90 objections were submitted over the 3 years compared to 12 comments in favour, and said the scheme looked ugly, was insensitive to the conservation area and was too large and bulky. Others, however, said the development would make the esplanade look clean and smart, preserving the integrity of the seafront. A scheme had previously been approved in 2010 for a 6-storey building, and while changes to the roof have meant the 2022 scheme is taller than the original 2019 plans, it would still be shorter than the property approved 12 years ago. Council officers said the building, with its stepped-back design, would obviously change the landscape of the esplanade, but would not be detrimental to the street scene or conservation area. The main delay behind the site's approval, officers say, has been concerns over ground stability, as the site is within an area known for instability and forms a significant concern for neighbours. Investigative works have been undertaken, and the council's external consultant engineer says the scheme and construction sequence would address concerns, is well thought out and allow the building to be built while maintaining its stability of the site and neighbouring properties. Conditions have been added to the permission, including the need for a construction traffic management plan, further ground stability information to ensure safety at all stages of construction, and a 3-year timeframe for the work to start.
Jail for man who stabbed his friend. A man who stabbed a friend in the torso with a knife while on bail for a vicious attack outside a nightclub has been jailed. William Kulik, 23 of Mayfield Road, Ryde, was sentenced at the Isle of Wight Crown Court last Thursday. He admitted assault occasioning actual bodily harm, a fray and possession of a knife in public at Fever and Boutique nightclub in Newport on January the 15th. It was a group attack and 3 co-defendants had already been sentenced for a fray, but it was Kulik who attacked a man and took a Stanley knife with him, although didn't use it. While on bail for that incident, Kulik caused grievous bodily harm with intent by wounding. On May the 27th, police officers were called after a man in his 20s sustained a single wound to the torso in Oakvale, Oakfield, consistent with being stabbed. The victim was taken to hospital and had to have surgery. Graphic CCTV was shown in court, showing Kulik's role in both incidents.
Another national chain could be coming to Tesco Extra on the outskirts of Ryde. It would be the 3rd store for Timpson's on the Isle of Wight. Timpson, best known for its key cutting, watch and shoe repair services, currently has other outlets in supermarkets on the island, including Asda and Sainsbury's in Newport. The plans for Tesco, which have been submitted to the Isle of Wight Council, would see a pod installed in the car park, taking up 4 spaces close to the entrance. It would measure 6.6 metres by 2.6 metres and be finished with timber cladding. The national brand has other such modular kiosks across the country in an effort to expand its business.
And now we have a column by Julie Jones-Evans. This is called The Cabinet Connection, a regular column from Isle of Wight Council leaders. So Julie Jones-Evans, Cabinet Member for Levelling Up, Regeneration, Business Development, Tourism and Leisure. She says, for me, cultural-led regeneration is a vital part of the Isle of Wight Council corporate plan. Many places using this approach have revitalised their communities to great effect, for example Hastings, Margate and Stoke-on-Trent. There is now clear acknowledgement of the social and economic value of the cultural sector and its ability to deliver growth and drive regeneration. These impacts can range from growth in tourism and creative and cultural sectors to enhancing individual skills, knowledge and confidence, to strengthening community pride and place image. The island has a rich history of inspiring people to create, whether through painting, writing, technology or ceramics. The field is seemingly endless. At the last count, 32% of employed islanders worked in a creative industry, so we have a great basis on which to grow. We also have a very strong festival and event economy, which brings in tens of thousands of visitors each year and adds to the vibrancy of our lives as islanders. The role the local authority can play is important. Arts Council England, ACE, named the island a priority place last September. Knowing cultural regeneration was in the corporate plan was critical to getting the designation. ACE and the National Archives are also supportive of our plans for a new cultural centre at Newport Harbour to house our historical documents and display some of our local collection. Last week's announcement regarding National Portfolio Organisation funding was just fantastic. 2.2 million over the next 3 years, supporting 5 cultural organisations. Key Arts, Island Collection, Ventnor Exchange, New Carnival Company and Shademakers. The Island Collection will be assisting other organisations such as Isle of Wight Creative Network and Stone Crabs Theatre Company, ensuring the funding will help other creative individuals and groups. Even though Southampton was unlucky not to be named City of Culture 2025, the whole experience of the island being part of the bid was worthwhile. Last month, the first Solent Region Cultural Conference saw our cultural strategy consulting launch. This will set out our plans to grow and support cultural activities and economy for the next 15 years.
Taking the rap for the rapscallions. Columnist Catherine James remembers a strict teacher addressing her pupils many years ago. Who farted? The 8-year-old me looked up from her exercise book. All the children's eyes, and now mine too, had turned towards the adult at the front of the class. Who farted? The teacher repeated. Own up. At the ensuing silence, he added, if nobody owns up, then you will all stay in during playtime. On that sunny day in 1972, I learned a valuable lesson of human existence. No matter how much of a goody two-shoes you personally are, one bad apple can spoil the societal barrel. Losing 15 minutes of precious freedom because of a boy's stinky bum made my own cheeks burn with injustice. I often think about those loose-bottomed yet tight-lipped classmates. How, in order to mitigate for society's bad apples, we've created punitive systems bristling with legislation by which we all have to abide. We've adopted conventions and structures to guide, yet also to control and monitor. Laws are added to, never relaxed or deleted. Take, for example, bollards. They only exist because someone parked somewhere they shouldn't. Adjacent to Newport's Key Arts is a tiny triangle of concrete. I like to imagine that it was once a valuable patch of urban wildlife, maybe a scrap of grass or even municipal floral planting, and then someone parked on it. In response, it was paved, crisscrossed with prohibiting yellow paint. Cars continued to roost there, so bollards sprung up to prevent incursion from ever happening again. That microhabitat disappeared, the triangle is sterile, and we are all losers. To wildly extrapolate my point, what if instead of blowing off, the boy was blowing up? It's been more than 20 years since the Twin Towers collapsed as the result of an airborne terrorist attack, with the needless violent deaths of over 2,000 people. Yet still, airport security systems processes travellers as if the risk of mid-flight sabotage has never been higher. One, thankfully unsuccessful shoe bomber results in 2 decades worth of holidaymakers having to present their footwear for inspection. In 2006, plotters primed soft drinks bottles as bombs. They were arrested following surveillance, not via airport security, yet subsequently all our toiletries must be bagged and visible for scrutiny. Any liquids over 100 ml surrendered. Instead of a pleasant and relaxed start to a flight, travellers are corralled, shuffling in untidy lines towards an undignified search and potential evisceration of their neatly packed suitcases. X-rayed, scanned, examined, all in stockinged feet. It is horribly reductive. Any aberration and you fail the selection. Waved to the other line for a bonus electronic pat-down. If its subjugation attackers any hoping to achieve, it has been delivered with the help of our own counter-terrorism legislation. Surely this wretched process is a disproportionate sledgehammer to crack a nutter. Airport security has to be the ultimate example of how a minuscule minority spoils things for the rest of us. A boy farts in class and we all get punished.
And now let's have a look at what events are on the island. And there are some Christmas fairs. There's a Christmas fair on Saturday the 26th of the 11th. In fact, all these are on Saturday the 26th of the 11th. There's a Christmas fair at Carisbrooke Priory starting at 10 o'clock. There's the Haven Street Christmas Market that starts at 10. Obviously, that's in Haven Street. And there's the Isle Dream of a White Christmas, starts at 11. That's a Christmas fair filled with lots of amazing local businesses at Medina Leisure Park. And on the 25th at 11th, we have Rock for Heroes starting at 7:30. This is at Medina Theatre. We have Ardale O'Hanlon, the showing off must go on. That's at Shanklin Theatre and that starts at 8 p.m. Sounds of the 60s, the Revolvers live at Bembridge Coastal Warners. And going on from there, 2nd of December, we have an evening of music, theatre and poetry by local live performers, Community Hall at Yarmouth. That starts at 7 p.m. And the Thinking Drinkers at 8 p.m, pioneers of alcohol-based comedy at Medina Theatre. That's in Fairley Road in Newport. Saturday, the 3rd of December, Ishmael's Praise Party Concert starts at 6 p.m, free musical party for children and big kids. That's at Christchurch Sandown. We have Christmas Blake at 7:30, that's at Medina Theatre. And I think that's about it from here, yes.
A special service to remember loved ones who have died will be held at Mountbatten this Christmas. Light Up a Life on December the 4th is open to everyone, and not just those who have been supported by Mountbatten, offering the island community the time and space to remember someone special. There is also the opportunity for a small donation to dedicate a light in memory of a loved one on Mountbatten's online remembrance tree. For dedications received by November the 26th, the names of loved ones will appear on screen during the service. The service will feature the Mountbatten Choir and Medina Marching Band, plus solo singers and readings. The lights on the remembrance tree will also be switched on during the service, which will start at 4 p.m. Christmas in Ventnor. Live music, a lantern parade and carols in the park are being planned as part of Ventnor's Christmas celebrations. The event is being organised by Ventnor Enhancement Fund, Ventnor Carnival Association, Ventnor Town Council and St Catherine's Church, and is taking place on Saturday, December the 10th. There are Christmas fairs at St Catherine's and Ventnor Baptist churches, and a Christmas market at the Winter Gardens will be raising funds for St Catherine's School. On December the 10th, there will be live music from noon until 4 p.m. in Spring Hill Gardens. Santa and his helpers will be at a grotto in the High Street during the day, and Ventnor Carnival Association is organising a Best Dressed Window competition and a window spot and lantern parade. The lantern parade will assemble on the green in Dudley Road from 4:30, led by Santa and the Vectis Corps of Drums and Ventnor Comic Jazz Band. Carols in the Park start at 6:30. We have some of the items that are taking place at the Shanklin Theatre, and on Wednesday the 16th of November at 7:30, Thursday the 17th of November at 2:30 and 7:30, The Hound of the Baskervilles, which is a radio play live on stage. Colin Baker from Doctor Who, Terry Malloy from The Archers and Dee Sadler from All Creatures Great and Small lead the cast in a brand new adaptation of Sherlock Holmes' The Hound of the Baskervilles. Our setting is a radio studio, our actors ready as if for a radio broadcast, and our sound effects created live on stage. A rare chance to see these popular actors live at your local theatre. This is a play not to be missed. Tickets are £22, which includes the booking fee. On Wednesday the 23rd of November at 7:30, Michael Portillo presents An Evening with Michael Portillo. Having left a political career behind, Michael has since reinvented and endeared himself to many with his obvious respect for the solid workmanship found in the great railways of the world. The effect of the railways on the history of the countries and the daily lives of their people. Listen to his story told with a parliamentary stand-up wit, and then feel free to question him about it. There will also be a book signing. Tickets for this are £20, which includes a £1 booking fee. FOST is £19, which is not available online. And finally, the Spotlight Isle of Wight Limited presents Steps into Christmas, which takes place on Sunday the 27th of November at 6:30. Spotlight Isle of Wight Limited presents Steps into Christmas, and the tickets for this are priced adults £8 and children £6. And the box office you can call 868,000.
Moving on to letters. Fast cat argument. And this name and address supplied but withheld. I see you had a response from Whitelink about their woeful later fast cat services. There are some significant holes in the response. 1. I travel regularly on the 10:15 p.m. car ferry, and the number of foot passengers has grown significantly these past few months. 2. The number of cars waiting for foot passengers at Fishbourne has increased and significantly, and so it is evident that a Southern Vectis bus service is not adequate. 3. Suggesting parking at Fishbourne is a ruse to get more money into Whitelink's coffers and can be very inconvenient for customers. What about those who go via the Fast Cat and have to return via Fishbourne? They're fleeced £9 for parking at Ryde Pier Head and still have the inconvenience of a taxi, intermittent bus service or an extremely long walk to retrieve their cars. 4. A couple of times a month I have to book on the midnight car ferry as I'd not get on the 10:15 p.m, but I would have got on the 10:45 p.m. Fast Cat. I wouldn't register as a potential Fast Cat traveller as I'm being made to take the car ferry. 5. How do Whitelink gauge that Fast Cat numbers have not returned to pre-COVID figures, like they say the car ferry has? There is no mechanism for you to say you would be on the Fast Cat if it was running, and you cannot book a ferry that doesn't exist. 6. How many people no longer travel to Portsmouth for events because of the lack of service? How many now have to drive across paying £60 instead of £14.60? It's blurring the numbers between car and foot passenger ferry numbers. 7. The pre-COVID all-night sailings for the Fast Cat was removed and COVID helped them significantly. Putting on a ferry service at 3 a.m. was done to say late-night Fast Cats were not viable. During COVID, Whitelink transferred the £1 fee for driving up the pierhead onto the ferry tickets. That hasn't been removed. It's about protecting profits and not about providing an essential service.
Bridget Perkins of Newport writes, referencing the Isle of Wight boundary hearing in Portsmouth. What kind of message does it send to us islanders about the treatment we can expect to receive under the proposed forced carve-up of the Isle of Wight? Why is the meeting about the island taking place on the mainland in Portsmouth? Portsmouth has been favoured at the cost of the island residents. The ones with the most to lose in what happens to them are being shown in no uncertain terms what their rights are. If you want to hear what is going to happen to your democratic rights on the island, you must sail over to Portsmouth to find out from those who will always take presidency over you. Not a good start for us, I fear. What is Bob Seeley up to now? I thought he was going to promote the island's welfare. Isn't that what we voted for? I live in Fairley in Newport, and I will be expected to vote for a Portsmouth candidate. My postcode is Newport, not Ryde or Portsmouth. I go to the doctor, the dentist, the hospital, and I shop in Newport. I was born in Newport and worked in Newport. Yet I will have no say in my life in Newport. Only Ryde, East Cowes and Bembridge, etc. And Portsmouth? What a complete farce. Bob Seeley has not put our interests first. I think he may have sold us down the Swanee.
This is from D. Wilson of Newport. I was pleased to read of councillors Phil Jordan and Carl Love express concern over the increased Southern Vectis bus fares. As Councillor Love says, we must do what we can to support each other. I take it from that, then, that there will be no increase in next year's council tax? Anything less than a freeze would surely be a hypocrisy, giving Councillor Love and Jordan's convenient soundbites over bus fares, which, unlike council tax, affect a relatively small number of islanders.
Nazi Germany made a very good job of reconfiguring our landscape. I grew up in Place Road in Cowes, writes Charles Gange of Cowes, with bomb craters in the adjacent fields and a ruined aircraft parts factory. And as part of their bombing campaign, it was one day in May 1942 that the Luftwaffe turned their attention to the town of Cowes, bombing out, in particular, the Cowes War Memorial, which stood in Market Hill. Damaged, it was removed to the safety of Northwood Park, where it has remained to this day. I do not question the dedication of those into whose charge this war memorial was placed, as it is that it has now always remained pristine. However, it is in effect out of public view, tucked away into a corner of the park, with the approach over grass. An example and further indication to its isolation was that there was no mention of any ceremony at Cowes in the county press's excellent coverage of Remembrance Sunday services last year. Why has it not been returned to its rightful place in Market Hill is puzzling. I realise it is larger than it was in 1942 due to the adding of the names of those that fell in the Second World War, but so be it. There is sufficient room to reinstate it, particularly if some of that unsightly clutter was removed from the foot of the hill. This memorial could and should be returned to clear public view, a daily reminder of those that lived locally and gave their lives.
This is a letter from, name and address was supplied, but it's been withheld. And it's about a building application. Regarding the article, Flooding Fears Raised by Village Homes, I was pleased that the county press has drawn attention to the proposed backland development on an ecologically sensitive water meadow adjacent to Lily Grove in Bryston. It is short-sighted to destroy the island's natural assets by building houses with no proven local need to satisfy targets set by national government. The proposal to build 2 expensive executive homes is at odds with and completely undermines the aims of the Isle of Wight area of outstanding natural beauty and Bryston Conservation Area. It represents the very worst of speculative development and is not sustainable. In meeting no local housing need, the primary objective here is to financially profit from the destruction of a unique greenfield site in the AONB and Conservation Area. Though largely hidden from public view, the site is a beautiful and rare example of a boggy wetland ecosystem framed by ancient woodland in the catchment of Buddle Brook. It is an irreplaceable resource for natural flood migration on the Buddle Brook floodplain. It is rich with wildlife and is a place of tranquility and dark skies. Very few, if any, places like this remain on the island. The Environment Agency have objected. The Isle of Wight AONB have objected. The Isle of Wight Tree and Ecology officers have objected. Bryston Parish Council have objected. The Green Party and Liberal Democrats have objected. Local residents have objected. The Island Planning Strategy supports paragraph 180C of the National Planning Policy Framework 2021, which says development resulting in loss or deterioration of irreplaceable habitats should be refused. One hopes that the Isle of Wight Council Planning Department will not be dazzled by the developer's glossy proposal and that common sense will prevail.
Steph Burgess-Flux, Chair of the Isle of Wight Liberal Democrats. She writes, I was disappointed to read that the Chair of the Isle of Wight Council has decided to voice an opinion on party politics. It is a long-held convention that chairs and mayors of councils maintain political neutrality during their term of office, in the same way that the Speaker of the House of Commons is expected to. Perhaps it is indicative of the inexperience of the party being represented that Claire Christensen was unaware of this convention. The reasons she cites for wanting the Green candidate to win could more easily be applied to the Liberal Democrat candidate Nick Stewart, who is not only an excellent Bryston Parish councillor, but also a valuable member of Calburn, Porchfield and Newtown Parish Council. I am sure that voters will weigh up the merits for themselves, and as Nick came second in the last local elections, he is widely expected to be successful this time, as the Conservative candidate does not appear to live in the ward.
The In Touch programme follows, and the scaffolding news follows that.
BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Good evening. Tonight we talk to two women, both celebrating firsts, both with new jobs, both aiming to make a difference.
Master Treasurer, I introduce Jessica Rodin Inaba.
Miss Inaba, in the name of the Masters of the Bench, I call you to the degree of the utter bar.
And later we'll be meeting Jessica, believed to be the country's first blind and black woman barrister. Perhaps the question we should be asking her is, why has it taken so long? Which might be an equally legitimate question to put to our first guest, Louisa Wickham. Louisa is England's first national clinical director for eye care. So, Louisa, that's the question. Why has it taken so long?
Well, I think it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, the role of the clinical director for eye care has taken some time, but it's really great that eye care has been recognised by putting back into the sort of national table to represent eye care. We all know that eye care has been facing a number of challenges. It's one of the largest volume outpatient specialties with over 10 million appointments per year. And my role really now is to provide sort of some national clinical leadership to help sort of foster collaborations across the healthcare that can enable transformation and to help remove blocks and improve efficiencies. Really, for ophthalmology, what we want to focus on is the prevention of irreversible loss of vision. And that's why I think there's been increasing recognition that we need this leadership to help address the challenges of increasing demand.
So what do you see really as your role? What are the things you are really determined to do?
So some of that will be about delivering national policy and guidance and standard pathways and contractual frameworks. But obviously there's other parts, which is looking at funding and commissioning and addressing national workforce issues. So all of those things will work together to try and transform eye care.
So let's look at a couple of the things that you've mentioned. I mean, there are some well-acknowledged problems, waiting times in particular. A report out earlier this year claims over 24,000 people have been waiting longer than a year for appointments in the UK. Yeah. What needs to be done there to tackle this, and where are the biggest logjams?
I mean, you're absolutely right. My priorities at the moment is to work and start working with regional local teams to see how we can address these significant challenges. But we're not going to achieve that by just doing more of the same. Eye care needs to transform and do things quite differently. No one single focus is going to do that. It'll involve many initiatives. I know you recently had Melanie Hingorani on your show talking about the possibilities of using digital services to help us identify patients at risk and monitor those with chronic conditions. So, we want to use some digital tools to support the workforce to do what they do best and more efficiently. But it's about using those to enable the best care so that patients are seen at the right time, at the right place and by the right person.
You are, as well as your current job, you're a consultant ophthalmologist and medical director at Moorfields. Under that, you've proven you can do something about waiting times. One example being a cataract drive. I mean, first of all, can you tell us what that is and what that actually achieved?
What we did at Moorfields Eye Hospital was essentially repurpose the whole of the hospital to provide one operation in terms of cataract surgery, so that we could allow as many patients as possible to be safely operated on by all of the surgeons working together with our optometry and nursing colleagues. And that allowed us to do over 720 cataract operations in 1 week. And it was a real example of how working together in the NHS, how we can transform services.
But what does that achieve in the long term? Because you obviously can't take over all those resources permanently.
Yeah, it did a couple of things for us. Firstly, it showed us the art of the possible. It showed us how a streamlined cataract pathway could be used in much smaller scale. So we continue to use many aspects of that streamlined pathway in a day-to-day, high-volume, low-complexity surgical list that are now happening throughout the country. And a number of hospitals have used the blueprint that we developed from that system. In the cataract drive for Moorfields, it allows us to really kickstart post-COVID recovery to really address those patients that have been waiting the longest, but is trying to integrate that more frequently within the general processes of the hospital.
We're always told that the most important element in treatment is early diagnosis. Would you acknowledge that we're missing some people's diagnoses because of those waiting lists that we're talking about? Bluntly, people are losing sight, which could be saved, aren't they?
Well, I think what we're trying to do at the moment is to use data collection to try and risk assess and triage patients as much as possible to recognise those patients that have urgent conditions. So it's no longer the case that if you have a referral, it just sits with a whole load of other referrals without being looked at. What we try and do is assess the referral by need and then bring in those patients that are most vulnerable and more likely to suffer problems. Without a doubt, it's a big challenge. There are a huge number of patients on the waiting list, and that's why, as I said, we need to really think about doing things differently and transform the way we do things. And part of the answer is to use diagnostic hubs, which we're beginning to bring online in a number of different areas, where we can invite patients to come in, have some data collection that can be reviewed by optometrists, doctors and extended nurse practitioners to ensure that patients who do have risk factors or causes of concern can be brought in earlier.
Now, it is potentially an optimistic time to have an eye problem, if there is such a thing. Probably there isn't, but but with many new treatments around, stem cell, new drug therapies, gene therapy. We've talked about the problems. Where do you think the best hopes are?
I think that's a great question. I mean, it is, as you say, a really exciting time. I think the fact that we have this number of possibilities is really due to research in eye care. And for me, the most important thing with this is to really ensure that we have a continued support of the research agenda within eye care and really work on bringing those fantastic innovations and discoveries into clinical practice as quickly as we can to prevent sight loss.
In recent weeks, we've reported on The Eyes Have It, which is a partnership between many of the sight loss organisations, which I'm sure you know about. They're calling for a national eye care plan. What would you say such a plan could achieve, and what would it look like?
Well, certainly the introduction of my role will further establish a conversation at the heart of the NHS about a national approach to eye care. But we do need to build consensus around the transformed model for eye care. And I'm committed to working with the whole eye care sector to identify those opportunities, to try and find things which are best done centrally at a national level, whilst also making the most of regional and local opportunities. So it means that the NHS can work together on a shared goal for eye care, while also making sure that local teams have the flexibility to support the specific needs of local people.
Now, we've touched on this and we always come back to it. All these things you've talked about depend on resources. And amongst the people we talked to at the Eyes Have It parliamentary event was Cathy Yelf, Chief Executive of the Macular Society. She welcomed your appointment, but she did have a concern.
We're slightly worried that perhaps she hasn't got the resource that she may need to be able to make a big difference on this, but it is a huge step forward.
So, do you have the resources, Louisa?
Well, it's a very difficult question at the moment, isn't it? I think for me what is critical is that we need to find mechanisms that are cost effective and efficient, not just in terms of finance, but also time and workforce resources. The challenges we face will not, and I don't think cannot be, addressed by keeping everything exactly as we have it now. We need to work together as a sector to figure out how we really transform the patient pathway to make sure that the patient is supported and educated. And in those initiatives in themselves will bear fruit in terms of less requirement for more advanced treatments if patients are able to have the educational resources to deal with their conditions early on.
Louisa Wickham, thank you very much indeed. Now, it's no surprise that we've had a big response to our item about public bodies being unwilling to communicate with blind people using email. When Clive Lever needed to kickstart the receipt of his retirement pension, he found he had to go online to fill in the forms. But there was nowhere where he could ask for ways to get the information in a form accessible to him. There was a helpline.
When I finally got through, I told them I had no useful reading vision. The agent told me that unfortunately they could not act on my request because their computer system only allowed them to process requests that would change the amount I was due. I was then surprised to hear her say, "But don't worry, we'll be sending you a pack of forms to fill in within the next 3 weeks. I'm sure you'll be able to read them by the time they arrive."
Well, at the time of writing, Clive still has not got an accessible way to read them, nor has he miraculously got his eyesight back. Meanwhile, Hazel's quarrel is with the NHS. She says,
I've been fighting Buckinghamshire NHS for this very thing. Even quoting the accessible information standards, they still just about manage to send emails every now and then. They seem to ignore the fact that we need privacy just like sighted people. I've had attachments sent as PowerPoints and ones that need passwords or codes. I've had in-depth medical reports sent in print, which end up in public eyes. The excuses they use are that their computers don't speak to each other, the person has not been in the job very long, and the most shocking one was that the manager would not let the staff email anyone.
Sounds like that could be a job for a lawyer, and we might have the very person joining us now. The law's been one of the earliest of the professions to become open to blind people, but most of the blind people who've established themselves have been male and white. They've also been predominantly solicitors. So there is some excitement at the achievement of Jessica Inaba. Jessica, as well as being blind, is a black woman and she's been called to the bar. So she is reckoned to be the first black blind woman to qualify as a barrister. Jess, first of all, are you surprised it's taken so long for someone in your position to make it to the bar?
It is surprising in 2022, but I am happy to be the first one, and I do hope there will be many to follow.
Why the law? What was it that attracted you to it in the first place?
I feel like it's always been in me. There was a doctor that used to deal with my eyes when I was a lot younger. And the last time I saw this doctor, I was about 3 years old. And I saw her again 15 years later when she invited me to one of her lectures. And the first thing she said to me was, "Hey, Jess, do you still want to be a lawyer?" And I said, "What?" And she said, "Yeah, when I saw you at Free, the last time I saw you, I asked you what you wanted to be." And I said to her, "How does a 3-year-old know what a lawyer is?" And she said exactly my thoughts. So apparently it's always been in me. I did deviate in my thinking as I was growing up. When I was about 9, 10, 11, I learned to play the piano, and I used to love singing and composing music, and I thought, yes, I could be the UK's answer to Stevie Wonder. So I was convinced I would be a musician. But in the end, when it came to applying for uni, I came back to my roots, I guess.
Did it strike you at that point that you could be entering a job where you could encounter prejudice for a whole number of reasons? As we've said, you know, you're a woman, you're black, you're blind. It's quite a package.
I must say it didn't cross my mind until I started to actually go to detention centres and prisons as a student lawyer. I was blind to the fact that discrimination would be this deep in 2022. So before I could gain access to my clients, the first thing I'd have to prove is that I was the lawyer. I was always assumed to be the sister or a relative of a client, and I was always told, you know, it's not visiting hours yet, you can sit and wait. So I had to establish to the prison guards or to anyone at reception that I was a lawyer. Once that was done, I had to explain why I needed to bring in my specialist equipment. So normally lawyers are only allowed to bring in a notepad and pen, but obviously that wouldn't work for me, being completely blind. So I had to bring in my Braille note taker in order to take notes of what the client is saying and to prepare their case or to give advice.
But the point about when you saw detainees that you were a relative, do you think that was due to your colour?
Absolutely, because there is only one of me. When you think of a lawyer, I'm not the typical type of person that comes to your mind. And I do feel like being black definitely had a huge part to play in that.
Can we talk about the practicalities of doing the course and doing the work? You are working in an area of law where you need to absorb a huge amount of information. You studied for your law degree in Braille. How easy has it been to actually get the materials that you needed?
My whole university experience was quite horrendous. I did an accelerated course. Prior to starting the course, I spoke to the university and explained that these are my access requirements. But unfortunately, for the entire duration of my bachelor's, I didn't have a single textbook or a single piece of accessible material translated into hard copy Braille or Braille that can be read on my Braille note devices. So the way I passed my bachelor's was a miracle.
I mean, we did put this to the University of Law where you went. They told us they were able to provide additional support to ensure you were able to succeed on your course, and that they were eventually able to provide Braille. Do you understand why the delays took place?
Quite frankly, no. It took for me to scream and shout before they could start making the changes. I continued to do my bar professional training course and my master's at the same university. But prior to starting those courses, I sat down with the university and explained to them, these are everything that has gone wrong during my bachelor's. These are what I need you to do to rectify this in order for me to access my next courses.
And was it better?
No.
Though we asked in our request to them for information, they haven't explained why the delays took place to us in their statement, I'm afraid. Can I just ask you why Braille? A lot of people now would tend to use audio, synthetic speech. Why is Braille so important to you?
I'm quite a visual learner in the sense that I need to feel what I'm reading in order to retain it. As a barrister in court, it's so important that I listen to what's being said around me. So now if I familiarise myself with using screen reader software, I would have an earpiece in court listening to what my computer's saying, and I feel like I would miss key information, and that's not me having my client's best interest at heart.
So how confident are you that when it comes to doing the job, you'll be able to get the information in a format that you need?
That is something that plays on my mind quite a lot. I'm just hoping that I can work alongside the chambers that I end up being with to find a strategy where everything will be accessible.
In spite of all that, this is a good news story. I'm just wondering how you feel about having made it.
It still feels quite surreal. I don't think I've given it time to sink in. Perhaps when I get my pupillage, then I will realise that, I really did it. But right now, it's still like a wild dream.
And what's your long-term aim? Because the law can lead to all sorts of things. Is this the road you want to stay on, or have you got other ideas?
I would like to stay in the law. I would like to eventually become a Casey and perhaps a judge one day. That would be amazing. And perhaps a partner in chambers also. That would be great.
Judge Jessica Inaba has a certain ring about it, doesn't it?
Definitely.
Jess, thank you very much for talking to us, and good luck. And that's it for today. We love to hear your opinions and your experiences. Email in touch at bbc.co.uk. Leave a voicemail on 0161 836 1338 or go to our website bbc.co.uk/in touch. From me, Peter Wight, producer Beth Hemmings and studio manager Nat Stokes, goodbye.
OK, we start with the scaffolding and skips news for the 14th of November 2022. Newport area, Mill House, Upper Shide, Blackwater Road, 29A, High Street, 11 St James's Street, Lugley Street. Guildhall, High Street, 11 St James's Street, Lugley Street.
In the Newport area, skips are on 64 Albany Road.
In the Ryde area, Jack's, 75 Union Street, 7 Cross Street, Cocoa Bear, Union Street, 71 High Street, 21A, 22A, Cross Street.
And the ride skips are in Orange Tree House, Madeira Road and Seaview, Belmont, Stein Road, Seaview, Blackberries, Fairy Road, Seaview, and at 6 Ratcliffe Avenue and the cottage in Upper Green Road.
And in the Sandown area, 59 High Street, 26 Melville Street.
And in the Freshwater area, the Old Bank, S Willard and Tennyson Road.